My name is Tokes. We're here with TokesOnNY, and I have the privilege and honor of hanging out with author Catherine Hiller today of the book Just Say Yes. And Catherine, I have a lot of questions about this because I had fun reading it.
Well, I hope so. If the reader doesn't have fun, they put the book down. No, I wanted this book to be utterly honest and somewhat humorous. And I think that's what it is.
I think you nailed those points. My first question, and it's probably you don't have to answer, but
I will.
did you try to get over borders? Because I've done it a bunch, and in this book there's 3 accounts of you I'm just getting on a plane, terrified but doing it.
Yeah. I must say, I think that was really maybe taking an unnecessary risk, but also there was the risk of going on vacation and not being able to get high at the appropriate moments, right? Before a great dinner or for a good sunset. So I did take some risks. Later on, when we got a little older, I didn't take quite so many risks, and now it doesn't seem to be quite an issue. I never bring anything anymore now. No.
That idea would honestly terrify me.
Well, it's a little scary, but maybe in a certain way, I wanted a little excitement. I don't know, but I don't take these kind of risks anymore. And of course, the landscape has changed so much that it's not really quite as risky if I'm traveling domestically. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would be embarrassing, but I know perfectly well that, the people at airport security are not looking for a joint or two. What they're looking for is a bomb. What they're looking for is a handgun or a knife. And I have to tell you, I had this tiny knife that I got in Geneva. I mean, when I tell you it was about this size, I'm talking about from the first joint of my finger to the tip. It was the tiniest thing. Well, they took apart my luggage to take out my teeny Swiss Army knife and throw it away.
Because you're obviously a terrifying risk.
Well, yes. Just take one look at me. Any 78-year-old woman, is obviously, a terrorist. So, yeah.
So a lot of that brings me to another question. What has it been like to see the laws change over your lifetime? Because I'll be 40 this year. I never thought that we would be in this position where I can legally sell cannabis now for a brand, or we can smoke on the street. So would you give me a little bit of what it's been like going through all these different legalization changes?
Well, it's been wonderful, of course. I mean, I've had people say, is the thrill gone now that it's legal? No, it was not. I just love being able to smoke on the streets of New York, which, by the way, I often did anyway, but with much more fear and much more hiding and so on. But now, it's nothing but great. And I'm hoping really the next big step is not on a state level, but it's on a federal level. That cannabis can be reclassified. I mean, I don't think it should be classified at all, but it certainly shouldn't be up there with heroin and methamphetamines. So,
Wholeheartedly agree that descheduling is the way.
Yeah.
I'm curious because you've lived this incredible life. Reading your book, I know that you compare yourself a little bit to Celia and you go a little bit back and forth, but it is an incredible life that you've had. So what inspired you to come out of the closet in such a bold way?
I think every writer is looking for a subject that has not been covered, something new. And I felt that my experience was not all that unusual. I know a lot of people of my age who smoke pot on a daily basis. And nobody had told this sort of normal story. I don't want to make a joke about normal, but I mean, this is a story of you say I've had an incredible life. For me, it's been a pretty ordinary life. I've enjoyed every moment, but it's not like I've done anything that unusual. I got a PhD, I raised 3 children, I write books. I mean, a lot of people could fall into that category. But I did realize that in terms of choosing a subject to write about, no one had written about my daily lived experience. As not really an advocate, although I became an advocate when the book came out 10 years ago, but as just a normal person who smokes pot now and again during the course of the day. This didn't, it really seemed, looking back after, 10 years later after the book was first published, it seems like a strange premise for a book. You smoked pot, you wrote a book. But I did try to get into it with a lot more detail and a lot more enthusiasm than that recap implies.
And it's your life. So I appreciate that degree of humble. But your book does shake and make waves for a lot of people because we're not used to people being so open and honest about their consumption. Like I myself, unless I was working in this space, didn't really talk about it much with people unless I was selling you something. Like I worked in the edible sphere for a while. So like unless I was selling you something infused, we didn't talk about it. So when you wrote this book, did you have a lot of friends that then came out to you?
I would not say friends, and it really wasn't the book. I mean, it was the book, but really what launched this book and somewhat of a frenzy of publicity 10 years ago was the New York Times published the first chapter in its opinion section. And then about 3 weeks later, they interviewed me for their news section. And that seemed really rather a remarkable amount of attention to, a slim book. That came out with a small publisher. So of course I was, very happy to tell my story, to amplify my message and to say, hey, look, folks, people can smoke pot on a daily basis for years and decades. And it's not a big deal. It's what I like instead of wine,
Mm-hmm.
That's all. It's just a rather innocuous way that unfortunately was illegal for so long. And the story of incarceration for marijuana is just a horrific story with lives ruined and so on. So, anything I can do to stop that sort of thing happening is great. And this is one reason why I was so thrilled when Steve D'Angelo wrote an introduction to the new book. Let me just show you the old book, because it's easy to make a mistake when you order it. The old book is orange. The new book is green.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So this was from 10 years ago. This just came out a few weeks ago. And Steve D'Angelo, who is a longtime cannabis entrepreneur and activist, has, I forget his exact, what it's called, but something like The Last Prisoner. He's going to keep agitating until the last prisoner for cannabis consumption is released. And it's really appalling to think that there are still people in jail for this habit or experience that harms nobody, including themselves.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to see that like we have so many states that are still, they are legal. They are allowing you to have medical or recreational or both. And people are actually in those states are still in jail for what a lot of us do right now. We sell for brands. So it's got to change because it doesn't make sense. It's an herb, as you put it.
And what really kills me is that occasionally say, well, this plant hasn't been studied enough. My God, this plant has been studied extensively. 25,000 studies involving marijuana. What more could you want? Sometimes a new pharmaceutical comes to the market with 4 studies or 3 studies. These people that pretend that marijuana might have some dangers we haven't yet uncovered, it's just ridiculous.
When it all comes back to Henry Anslinger, which you thankfully call out in your book, a lot of young people have no idea how prohibition got started or that Anslinger had anything to do with it. So I really appreciate you calling that out specifically in the book. It was huge.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's still, if a lot of the things we face now still come back to that initial racism and prohibition. Is that still part of the problem?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know. But it's just appalling that apparently Nixon knew that there was nothing wrong with marijuana, but he thought it was a great way to get the hippies arrested. I mean, when you hear these private conversations and they're made public, they're understood, it's horrific. That marijuana possession is a pretext to jail activists or, So I hope that this hidden history of marijuana will come to light.
I truly hope so. It's one of the things that, like, when I'm in dispensaries, I'm sharing books with the bud tenders that they should be reading so they can get some of the history of what this movement truly has been. Like, most people have never heard of The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And that's one of the transformational books that I've read within my cannabis journey about where this plant came from. And it's some people will say that it's a conspiracy book, and maybe there's some conspiracy to it, but it's still an amazing book that talks about all of the benefits of cannabis, from using it from plant medicine all the way through our textiles and all of the different things we can do with it. And it's one that I push at bud tenders. Read this. You'll get so much more information than I could ever give
Well,
you.
you're pushing it to me. I hadn't heard of this book. I will make that my next nonfiction book, because
It's
I
a
do
really
novels, but this sounds like a great book. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a good read. I think you'll enjoy it. It's very historical, so piece out the bits that work for you and that make sense for you. But if there were something that you could tell all of the bud tenders in New York State, because that's my audience, is the bud tenders of New York State. Yeah. If there was wisdom you could give them, what would it be, like, around this plant? Like, I always call it sage wisdom when you're imparting, like, a little gift of knowledge that you've learned.
Gee, I don't know. They probably know more about the various brands and dosages than I do. You know what? Let me just say this about bud tenders and about marijuana, different kinds of strains. I know there's supposed to be an enormous difference between indica and sativa. And I have gone to dispensaries and said, give me the one that has the most indica. Give me the one. And I compare them. I don't know what's wrong with me. Yeah, indica's a little slower, sativa's a little brighter, but it doesn't seem to be this huge difference that people are talking about. Do you get that difference?
I do, but I'm also generally really looking for it, and my body is sensitive. So one of the things, like, I've been smoking for almost 27 years. I prefer to smoke it as
13?
opposed to eating it.
You
Yeah,
started at 13? Wow. Okay.
I did. So, like, I've noticed that certain terpene profiles do push me in a specific direction, but the terpenes truly have to be prevalent. So, like, within this space, we've hybridized the plant so much that we have lost some of its core medicine, and some of those land races, we simply don't have access to them anymore. So, like, the extreme sativas that would, like, make you giggle until you peed a little, like, those don't nearly exist the way they did, like, when I was younger.
You're
Like, when I
kidding.
was 13.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Like,
didn't realize that the evolution of the plant, and that means that some of those extremes have been, you know.
one of the other things we did is, like, all of these indoor grows that are under high powered lights, maybe not properly, like, temperature and humidity mitigated, we're burning off a lot of those terpenes. So much of the cannabis we see now is 3 to 4% for terpene values, and we really want to see something higher than that. Whenever
Is that ever listed on a packet, terpene values? This is a whole new term for me. You know a lot more than I do. I just smoke it, but you know it.
I got to teach all of this state as I'm going around the products.
You do. So how do we know about the terpene level of our buy?
COAs. There's a few brands that do list the amount of terpenes on each. You'll see them in their displays. I know Rolling Green is big on showing you what the 3 leading terpenes are, so you can actually make a selection for your body, which I really like. But a lot of the brands simply aren't doing it yet. So, like, there is a ton of knowledge we could be given, but one of the things I'll say is I'm looking for a strain that I have around. This is just in a regular bag. Sour diesel. So if I walk into a dispensary, I don't know that I'm actually always getting sour diesel. Does the terpene profile match what you and I are actually used to? Because it probably doesn't. It likely doesn't. So, like, it's interesting. They can have very definitive leans. But if you're more on the medical side, you're dealing predominantly with people who grow indoors, you're going to have a little bit less of that terpene profile.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You're teaching me stuff. See?
It's a thing. It's a thing.
One of your pre-questions that I glanced at, and they were all very intelligent. I want to answer them
Mhm.
all, but you did say, after 50 years of smoking pot, but I just should tell you, this book is now 10 years old, so it's now 60 years. So I have been smoking a long time.
So over the course of 60 years, because now I know that you can go into dispensaries.
Yeah.
I don't want you to tell me a brand because we don't need to lead anyone in any direction. But what is your favorite type of strain? Have you been able to figure out if there's a strain that works best for getting you where you're going?
It's all pretty good. I do
Love
like a sativa brand, but I don't have any particular strain. The difference from when I first wrote the book, and I had to get my supply from a dealer that I'd been with for 20, 30 years. I mean, he took no new customers. He was very
Yeah.
safe. Only the people he knew, and he gave them each a key to get into the downstairs, and then you climbed all the way up, and there it was. There was nothing. He would open his bag and say, "How much do you want?" It was not like, "How about this versus this, and this will get you there." No, he had a big bag. He scooped some out. You left on your way, and that was that. So I can't say I'm all that fussy. If it gets me high, it's good. And if it doesn't get me high, it's bad. But the distinctions that some people make, they don't seem to apply that much to me.
Well, I'll be honest. My dad says the same thing.
Oh,
Um,
I'm so
he
glad.
will.
I'm so glad to
Yeah,
hear this. Really.
you're not alone in it. There are
Okay.
some people that don't get the big effects from the terpenes in either direction.
Yeah.
And my dad is one of them. Like he'll show up and just be like, I just want something good. Whatever's good.
Right. Whatever you recommend. And now they do have the percentage of THC, and that I think is relevant. I recently bought something. He said it had 36% THC. Wow. I did smoke it, and less, it's true. I can get high on fewer tokes, not the one toke that he suggested, but a couple, yeah. So I
Maybe he
decided,
underestimated your tolerance.
oh, my tolerance. I don't know who in America is more, well, Snoop Dogg, of course, and Willie Nelson. There are big names that have greater tolerances and smoke a whole lot more than I do. I've heard Snoop smokes 40 joints a day or some insane amount.
Yeah, this would track for his character. I wonder how much Martha smokes.
I doubt she smokes that much.
I mean, I don't think she's in Snoop's category, but like they hang. So
They hang, but I think it was an amazing confluence. Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg, crazy. But I also wonder, these people who smoke constantly, are they really getting high anymore? How can you? If you don't, I mean, getting high works by your contrast with your, you want the best pot is that sort of makes the most difference, right? That suddenly pops you up into a different place. If you're smoking it all the time, how do you even know you're high? So yes, there are lots of people who smoke more than me.
it gets to like I have PTSD. So I consistently smoke throughout the day. Like my bong is right here. It's never far from reach. And throughout the day, like at night, high is very different. Oh, that's really cute. But like as I go throughout the day, I'm not getting as high as when I initially started, but I also don't want to. That initial mind muddle is not what I'm looking for. And that's what I deal with the first like hour and a half of consumption of the day. And then after that, it's just I get to have balance. My brain settles and I can function and I actually have like cohesive thought again. So it takes a lot more by the end of the day if I'm looking for that mind muddle.
Yeah. That's a cute way to put it, the mind muddle. I don't know. Yes, I guess it is different if you're doing it to maintain a certain amount of, I don't know, sanity, cohesiveness, whatever. If you need that, then yes, you're getting high is not going to be that important. But to me, it's more about getting high. When someone tells me, you eat it and it'll make a warm, good feeling. I don't need a warm, good feeling. My life is a warm, good feeling. I'm really fortunate. But I do like to have like, whoops, I'm suddenly here. Oh my God. I love that.
I mean, it's always nice to be already at a 10 and just be brought to a 12 for a little while. because then you can just, you're floating at that point. You're in the clouds and it's nice.
I do think, though, that there's some moments of the day, basically two, that really are most important for me in my cannabis habit. And the first one is before I write. I love to be stoned, and I don't really think it affects what I write, but I do think it affects how I feel about it. So I'm feeling so cozy and confident when I'm stoned that it makes the writing easier. I don't think I'm any more imaginative, and I have kind of a test case. Throughout my 3 pregnancies, I did not smoke.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, writing the whole time. So those books are not any different from any other pages I wrote being stoned first. But I do think the whole process is more fun for me when I'm high. And I feel better about myself. Like, oh, yeah, that's a good line. Oh, yeah. Oh, ah. So bit by bit, it's more fun. But the actual product is probably more or less the same.
I really appreciate that you use it so you can be your most authentic self as a writer.
Yeah. It's more, I think it's about giving me confidence. It's hard to explain. But I just feel better about what I'm doing. So it enables me to do it more easily and more joyfully.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I dig it. I do have another question for you. It goes back to your section on Woodstock in the book and how you started going to festivals again, which I adore this. But having attended Woodstock in 1969, how do you compare the counterculture movement of the 60s to today's cannabis culture?
Well, in the 60s, cannabis came with a whole lot of other countercultural manifestations that seemed so incredible. You weren't around, but we really thought we were going to change the world. We were going to change how everybody dressed, ate, worked, related. It was this huge, big change that we thought was around the corner. And now, as we know, it was not around the corner. And in many ways, things have gotten worse. I don't think smoking pot these days, when everyone is doing it, fraternity boys, whatever, you could get it from Elon Musk, you could get it down to whoever's delivering your food, they're all smoking pot. So it's not the same cultural phenomenon it was. You could look at somebody, and by the way they were dressed, you knew how they voted, you knew the kinds of foods they would like, you knew if you could have a great conversation with them. I don't think that's true anymore. I think smoking pot it's nice that it's part of the general culture, particularly for the people who do need it for medical reasons. And that's great that they can get it. And even people like me who don't need it for medical reasons, but it makes my life richer. I'm glad I can do this. But I don't have the same feeling of cultural unity that Woodstock provided. The amazing thing about Woodstock, I was in grad school already. So you could see a few hippies at your school. I was at Brown, which is a pretty conservative school then. Mm-hmm. And there were like 20 of us. You see them in your clothes. And on the weekends in particular, where I was, stopped being such a serious graduate student, and I was hanging out with these people, there was a different feeling. But, I don't think it's that significant a cultural signifier as it used to be. Oh, what I was going to say was, so at Brown, you'd see 20 or 30. Then when I went to Woodstock with my then fiance from New York, as you're traveling up the thruway, you look at these cars like, all of these freaks, where have they been all our life? And then you get there and it's 100% tie-dyed in jeans and long hair and big loopy grins. We didn't think it was anything as big as that. We thought it was like 5% of your college campus was feeling this way. And the huge relief at seeing all these people, all these friends, it was really remarkable. To say nothing of the music, which is, of course, mind-shattering.
So none of my listeners know this, but my dad is obsessed with Woodstock. He was too young to go. because he's 65 now, but he has all of the DVDs. It started out as VHSs and CDs,
Wow.
but he's got all of them. And I grew up watching and listening to everything Woodstock related.
Wow.
So like, I can only begin to imagine what it must have been like to go to something like that and see your entire community and see the power and the force behind that and how beautiful it is.
It really was. It was. Of course, I mean, I didn't only go to Woodstock, I was actually sort of, my ex was a cameraman. And so it was funny how the film came together. Initially, it was directed by an independent filmmaker who got, this is so pathetic, $25,000 from Warner Brothers, right? Give us a documentary. Well, everybody worked for free. He put out the call, Michael Wadley, of anybody in New York who was a cameraman and who had film, could be old, new, whatever, who had film in their camera, come to Woodstock. And so that's how we went, because we knew that the independent documentary community was going to be there, including Barbara Koppel, who had just made Harlan County, USA. And she did some wonderful interviews with the Portisand guys, the guys that were cleaning out the shit, but they were very nice. They gave her a great interview. So it was really wonderful. And my husband, my ex, went on to edit Woodstock, a lot of the acts in Woodstock. So I'm quite familiar with the films.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so awesome. That's wonderful. I appreciate you taking a little time to hang out with me today and share with me some of your background and some of who you are as a person.
Yeah.
If there is anything that you can tell our industry, any thoughts that you have to share with us, because 60 years of being a consumer, we want to hear your thoughts. So like, if there's any final thoughts you want to share with us, I would love to hear.
First of all, you told me, you're telling your bud tenders to read a book that you recommend, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, to the bud tenders. Yep. But it would be great if you could recommend my book.
That's the one I'm recommending now.
That's the one and it would also be great if dispensaries carried more literature. There are very few dispensaries that carry books. And I think people who come into a dispensary might indeed be interested in books about it. I mean, pot smokers, they read. I think I'm all read, but many of them do, and they would be interested in reading books that attest to the contemporary experience and that can also say, hey. Well, the other thing is that you mentioned something interesting. I guess that, now that people can market brands and so on, I don't know if you're making a special outreach to people like your dad who are over 60, but there's a huge market there. We're the boomers, Mm-hmm. We started smoking pot. Some of us do now, some of us don't. But I would love to see brands address, the gray smokers, or however you want to put it,
So of all there are so many different demographics. And right now, I'll be honest with you, the majority of New York is pushing towards white males that are like that 22 to 45. And it's not enough. Like, it's not enough. I'm constantly talking to people about women-owned brands, LGBTQ brands. That way, like, people are thinking more outside of like, there's a demographic that's bigger than just that. Like, most people don't realize that women are controlling the finances of the households, but we're not marketed to at all. So like, you're missing 52% of your market. We start thinking about boomers. We're not marketing to boomers at all. There's a few brands that do consider older people as their demographics, but some of them are missing the mark entirely. So I'll definitely be interested to see what the next few years shakes out as the demographic.
Maybe you should be taking ads in AARP and so on. They do, by the way, AARP has run cannabis issues. I think this was a couple of years ago. Yeah, they are, those are people, there's huge numbers of people. And AARP, of course, is the largest circulating magazine in the United States.
Yes, it is.
I say that with great pride because I was published there.
I love it. I love it. And it's
And you know what?
honestly, mhm,
What I was published was sort of interesting, actually, in terms of what people's perception of cannabis. It was not a piece on cannabis. I set myself the goal of memorizing and finding and knowing their geographical location of every country in the world, and there are about
mhm.
200. And my memory is not particularly good, but I set up this task. I was going to do it. And then I did do it, and I wrote an article about it. But it shows you that even if you're somewhat memory impaired from your years of smoking, it's not all gone. I was able to do that.
That's awesome. Like it's my memory is shot. I don't think it has much to do with cannabis.
You know, I have many friends of my age who don't smoke pot. Terrible memories, really. I've got to remind them of what they said yesterday. This is fact of life, unfortunate.
And like they're starting to show that cannabis can actually help Alzheimer's, can help things like Parkinson's disease. So like maybe it is helping with the plaque that's on our brains and help keeping us young. And I look forward to us seeing more and more studies actually come out. But like we need
Yeah.
some federal aid in getting studies done because there's no money for researchers right now unless it's privately funded. And it's a lot.
And I don't think it's going to happen under this administration. I don't. But I've seen studies about Parkinson's or alleviating the symptoms. Nothing
Mhm,
about preventing it. I don't. I would love to believe that it had some beneficial effect on people who have Alzheimer's, but
mhm.
I haven't read any of that.
Yeah, it's
It calms them. I think it's good for them mentally, but it
mhm.
doesn't like restore, the kind of basic understanding we want people to have.
Yeah, no. The study that I saw on Alzheimer's was a few years back, but it's one of those I'll be excited to see these studies shake out. I will be very excited to see that because like right now our medical system is very much so how do we keep you sick but comfortable and complaining only a little. And I'd
Well,
love to
that's the thing, but Alzheimer's, they really haven't found anything that works better. Many
yeah,
things they found things that work better, but with Alzheimer's,
yes.
God, what a terrible sentence that is. So yeah.
Yeah.
But if they
It's
can make even somebody who has Alzheimer's a little happier in her life,
mhm.
a little
That would be
easier
huge.
and less disturbed and less, yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, every little bit of relief goes a long way. We'll take it. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking some time today with me.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Where can people find you?
Well, let's see. Oh, I have a Substack. The Substack is called The Pleasure Principle. So it's much more, it's not about smoking pot at all. I think I've written about it twice. I now have written 100 posts, 110 posts about pleasure. They come out
Ooh,
every Tuesday, most Tuesdays at 11:11. That's my magic hour.
oh,
So you send me your address and I'll put you on the subscriber list. But
oh,
it
nice.
is a lot of fun and, it's building. So it's exciting for me. And it's not just what most people think of as pleasure, which could be, sex or eating a great meal. No, I go into other sorts of pleasures that people don't even acknowledge. Like some people are very happy folding clothes. They get a kick out of it. I wrote a post recently on what I call sport parking. When it's really tiny and you're going to get in there, you are going to do it. Yeah, right. The smaller the space, the bigger the challenge, the better I park.
Yes.
I wrote a post on that. So, pleasure comes from many different things, and I want to be the pleasure principle.
There's not many things more satisfying than knowing I parked a big SUV in a spot that really should just fit a Prius.
Good for you. So you get what I'm talking about.
I
Yeah.
do. I do. And Catherine, I'll make sure that your Substack is linked down
Thank you.
below so everyone can go
That was
subscribe
great.
and check it
Yeah.
out. And please, guys, go pick up Just Say Yes. It's an amazing read from start to finish. And I'm going to read it again because it was a
Oh
really,
my
really
God.
good read.
You're my soul. Thank you.
Like I'm destroying the book a little bit. This is the second time I've read it cover to cover, but
Wow. That's
it's
amazing.
very much so it resonates. That's the word I'll use. It resonates. So
Well, that's what writers want. We want to communicate, resonate. We want someone, it's like mirror neurons, they're firing. Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. So that's the best thing, knowing that my books, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, are doing something to a reader.
They do. This one was a really good read. It allowed me to actually like go, I'm not the only one who's thought this.
Well,
this isn't just
and
my lived
novel,
experience.
by the way, is called The Feud. And it's about a workplace feud. There are two saleswomen at a company, and one of them smokes a lot of weed and the other one smokes a lot of wine, drinks a lot of wine. So in a way, the way they interact with each other and how the feud builds is very much related to their favorite ways of getting high. This is a book. One of my male friends said he had no idea women could be so vicious. And I didn't know. I was writing it. It was like, oh, yes, this one will get her thrown out of her rent-stabilized apartment. The other one will, arrange for a police raid. And they got worse and worse. I mean, these women, how did I think of them?
Because they're real.
Yeah.
This is something that I've actually been seeing within my great industry over the past few months. So yes, women can be vicious.
Yeah.
But no, I'm going to read that because now I'm curious.
Okay, good. I think The Feud is my best novel because it really works like a novel. Some of them are more, what I'm not going to diss my other books, but I think that The Feud is a classic novel with, rising action, a huge crisis, and then a little denouement. For those who study literature and how books work, this works.
All right, I'm going to give that one a read. Again, I'll link everything below.
Write when you've read it. I would love to hear from you.
I will. And I will probably invite you to come back again so we can talk about it.
This has been so much fun. Take care.
I appreciate you, Catherine Hiller.